Benevolence is Dawu Kalini, Asaru Ma'a, the Pat Bay. Also known as Mild Mannered Citizen, David and Mitri. Live in color. You're here on O.W.U, the original world union, and we're about to manifest the methods and ways U.S.A. can avoid the second Civil War. Stay lit, stay tuned, and vibrate with me. O.W.U.
It's preparation time. Yeah, we are the original world union. O.W.U. This is our soundcast. We are the leaders of the Unified Indigenous People Liberation Front and the priestess and high priest of the faith of true right, truth, and right. It's me, Dawu Iki, Yashma Saru Ma, manifesting the truth, teaching, sharing, and calling to unity, the evolutionary leaders to atone and rule as one. O.W.U.
Thank you for kicking. As you see, I'm here in Southern California, feeling good. You know what I'm saying? Not trying to wear no suit and tie. This ain't just news. This is a real vibe. This is a vibe cast. O.W.U, the original world union, the origin of world unanimity. And we're going to manifest, and we are manifesting. Chime in. Not only leave your comments, send for promos, send in. If you want to get on and talk about this, we could do live streams from wherever. It doesn't matter, because that's what we do. We can make it fun. We could be creative, but we want to drop the knowledge, the truth, and what's cracking and what's really going on in the world right now. And that's what we're doing. Any of you that don't know, we are O.W.U, the original world union. Go to the websites and learn more about it. The books will be dropped soon, and there's much to learn. Methods and ways the U.S.A. can avoid the second Civil War is what we're dropping. Hopefully you already checked the other videos in these series. You should, to catch up to what's going on. So right now we're talking about how this could be avoided. Other people's opinion are not my opinion, whether it be in comments, whether they take any of my footage and put it in their videos or whatever. No one represents me. I represent the ascendants of O.W.U. O.W.U is the coming golden age for this world, where all this suffering and pain end, and that's what O.W.U is about. That's what the book about O.W.U is already in action, will be dropped soon, and that's what we do. That's what we're teaching. But O.W.U also has a vision, a plan, goals, and helping you realize who you are. If you are ascendants, that means you were incarnated here from the future. The reason why we're talking about things like World War III, the Second Civil War, the coming solar storm, is because it's not a destruction. It's not a sad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a reset. We're going through an extreme change of paradigm, and it's entropy. Any suffering you see is part of the entropy. So let's get into this. Methods and ways U.S.A. Can avoid the second Civil War. Now, in saying that, the first things of knowing and educating and people that care about this subject is think that I'm going to talk about history. That's the first thing you or anyone that is like that will think I'm going to talk about. Historical methods and ways. Similar countries to the United States, in other words, so-called democracies. The United States is an anocracy, regardless of what you think. It's an anocracy. There's different types of anocracies. There's open anocracies, which are coercive. There's deceptive anocracies, and we live in a deceptive anocracy. So I'm not going to take history as the most important way to teach you of why there is already a second Civil War now, because we want to give information and data and vibrate how the United States can avoid that second Civil War, correct? Well, again, it's June 2024. The year is 2024. It's June. So that lets you know midway into June where we're at with this. It's election year. There's a lot going on. There's a lot threats going on toward the order and the law in the United States of America. There's extreme factions and even super factions at war with one another. So we don't have to depend on history teaching us how to avoid the second Civil War. As a matter of fact, there's so many unique areas and factors going on with the United States that are so different from the first Civil War in the United States, and that are so different than global civil wars that have happened historically, whether they've been just over the last 5 years, 2 years, 10 years, 50 years, 100 years, 150. There's so many unique factors just because of technology alone, just because of the way of and how powerful the world illegal criminal cartels are. You see, these things influence whether there will be a second Civil War in the United States. That's things that the usual people, no matter who you go to on the internet, they rarely, and you will never find anyone that adds the mass criminal influence. And I'm not talking about disorganized crime. I'm talking about organized crime's influence on the coming Civil War and World War III. That's part of how we know what we have to do to stop a second Civil War and World War III. But we're focused on a second Civil War in the United States, right? So similar countries that are democracies or anocracies, and by the way, that's me, yeah. That's one of my interviews with a gentleman, and we discussed this, would there be and could there be and why there could be a second Civil War here in the United States. And yes, he's American. So we're going to talk about this, how the historical countries implement and avoid civil wars, those that did avoid. Now remember, since the nation-state experiment began, only 4% of nations have had civil wars. But I say it's an extreme low percent of real democracies. Most are anocracies. And so that's the issue. That's the real issue. So South Africa is an example. Anybody historical would say is the biggest and most clear example, but that's not true. There's been civil wars avoided in Nigeria. A lot of people want to downplay Africa and Asia are great examples of, throughout Africa and Asia, of how to avoid civil wars. South Africa is a popular one, of course, because of Nelson Mandela and how that went down. They formed the oppressive anocracy, fascist, I would say, government of the South African regime, apartheid regime, pre-current South Africa. It was anocracy, an open anocracy, a proud anocracy. They were oppressing the people, destroying them, bleeding them, and vampiring them, the masses of people, regardless of their race. They punked out, the white leaders punked out the white masses and made them be at best materialistic if they wanted to be happy. Because basically they had to live with being cold-hearted and mean. That sound familiar? Yeah, that's what's really going on even in the United States, where these leaders that are racist, this leader class of people, and they're forcing the other whites. And that's why there's so many whites that aren't racist, because they're not standing for that shit. They don't want to live and be cold-hearted like that. And so like in Europe too, South Africa had similar politics in the United States because that apartheid government was formed purposely off of the United States. They focused on the federal government of the United States, how they did their relations with the states or districts, and also they focused on the United States Jim Crow laws. They applied the same thing, and they took some from also the Israel state in the nation of Israel. So that's how they knew what they wanted to do to those Africans. So political and economic strategies and tactics must be on point to stop the second Civil War in the United States in our current time. So civil rights is another area we must get our shit together in the United States in order to stop the second Civil War. You must have an attitude of compromise. You cannot do that if you're dishonest. The investor class and corporate the upper corporate, not common corporation, somebody with a car business. I'm not talking about common people corporation. Multi-billion dollar corporations in the United States are part of a machine. They were bailed out, but the same people look down on people for getting social services and being bailed out. I repeat, middle class Americans are full of deception and self-deception and self-manipulation. You talk down on people for getting social services, which is a form of socialism, right? But you got bailed out. No matter who, what race, creed, any corporation in the United States, especially during the pandemic, got bailed out, and especially after the crash in 2008. They got bailed out. Especially the big corporations got bailed out. They got social services. International and federal social services. They had to beg. Sound familiar? How y'all talk down on people because they're getting social services? Because it's nonsense. It's classism at its best. And so if we got to get this economic, social, and political relationship going, it will need one of the 5 tentacles of the United States government known as the corporate media, the historic media. That is a tentacle of the United States. You got the judicial, the executive, and the legislative. But you also have the administrative, and you also have the media. Those are the 5 branches of the United States government, actually. If you have above the veil consciousness, you realize that. And so the media is so stuck on corporate benefit, competing with each other, but at the same time also because whoever their controllers are of these media groups, they tell them what they can and cannot stand for, what grounds they can stand on, what they believe in, and what they could be biased towards and be against. So that's where overarching government will need to come in and put these CNNs, these Foxes, and make them stop fighting each other and force them to do what's called public diplomacy. Whether it's going to be open that the government is controlling them just long enough to keep from the second Civil War to happen, or if the government is going to come out in the open and say it, or if they're not going to come out in the open and say, hey, we're about to take a short-term control over our 5th branch of government, which is the corporate media. This would include YouTube, which you're watching this video on. It would include Patreon, everything. Because what needs to happen is the public diplomacy needs to be on point. Because what causes second civil wars? Factions. Factional conflicts and warfare becoming protracted combat. I repeat, super factions and small factions going into protracted warfare, not only against one another, but against their governments, whether it be local government, state, or federal government. So this is what has been successfully avoided in the United States for many reasons. But again, what are the 3 areas? Political, social, economic. These 3, the control of the media message, it must become less polarized. I repeat, it must become less polarized, and it must at least make people feel within these different factions that, hey, I'm seeing some, and it takes time. You can't just, and this is why I say it must be an overarching government. You need more government. If it gets to the point like it is right now, worse than it is now, we're going directly into protracted combat. Protracted combat would start off with what they call terrorist attacks, and that could be cyber, not just gunplay and bombs and stuff like that. I'm talking about cyber attacks also. And so to avoid that, we have to get the media under control to get the right message. So if the media is having the masses of people, any of those people in these factions to feel better about things, they'll be less on edge. They won't feel, these militias won't feel like they gotta go into their bunkers and get their guns and run people and kill people off their lands. They won't have to do offensive attacks. You see, but will that happen in the United States? Will the fifth branch be taken control of, whether it be in a shadow way or openly? If the Congress and Senate, the judicial and the executive all agree, that would take all the parties and everyone saying, hey, we need to take control over CNN, Fox, Facebook, YouTube, Google. Temporarily, you're going to have to, we need these messages just temporarily to stop this second civil war. That's something that needs to be done. That's something that can be done. But will it? Again, we're talking about the methods and ways the United States of America can avoid the second civil war. I just gave you one of the top.
Claim and affirm that Anpu, David, will awaken
the human spirit of love.
This coma is his cocoon.
To be Anpu's destiny to wake.
Vibrational happiness. Generational curses and witchcraft. I overcame the war side.
Now he has evolved in the sword.
For that to happen, for the media to be getting controlled by the central government and by the shadow United States government, when I say shadow, I mean like CIA, FBI, even beyond them, right? That would take the fourth branch of government, which is the administrative state. That's right. The Administrative Procedure Act. All those government agencies need to be on board, because that's who's going to control the media and tell the media and control other things to make sure that it goes right. Bureaucracy has to be on board. And remember, this is going to be what? Incremental. Because incrementalism is what has got us to be in this cold second civil war. We're on the edge. You know how they're the doomsday clock? Well, this is the 12. We're right here. It's about to go boom. Boom. Because once the terrorist attacks begin by any militia, and once they'll send out members to go out do these terrorist attacks, right? Which is sickoness. But then what happens is, but once the groups openly say, hey, we did it, you're already in a second civil war. Not that the government won't put down the poker face and say you're in a second civil war, they won't. But you are. But just because they did a terrorist attack and didn't admit that they did it, a group, that doesn't mean you're not in a second civil war. You are in a civil war. Luckily, in the United States of America, you don't get terrorist attacks. Where you are, but you don't realize it. Those attacks in those schools, always a white male, right? For whatever reason, that one in Virginia, like 10 years, 15 years back, it was an Asian. Some of those aren't random. Some of those are part of groups, and they're sending there as a sacrificial type thing. But are those groups factions against trying to destabilize a society? That's the question. So back to historical influences to avoid the second civil war. Well, time, incrementalism. What has been incrementally happening? We have to break what has been happening administratively and in the media, but also within what? The judicial, the legislative, and executive, which is what? What is causing all this? Polarization. Conflict. Rome fell because of internal conflict. Not the greatest example. Ancient Kemet fell because of internal conflict. Are we realizing it's repeating. So is this possible to get this two-headed snake, the so-called lefts and right, the so-called Democrat and Republican, how do we get these dragon heads to stop clamping at each other? That needs to be done, and that anything that's possible is actually possible. Whether if it's harmful, that means it's probable, right? So you need to get the conflict to end in a judicial, legislative, and executive in order to influence the administrative, in order to influence the media. And those are the 5 dragon heads of the United States government. I'm not even really speaking on their scorpion stingers, which is the CIA, FBI, and NSA. Their venom from their viper bites, their stingers. You see what I'm saying? And their clamps. So, this is the way that you can avoid, is by getting that polarization, that conflicts to slow down the end, and then you make these factions and these faction leaders, their members feel. But what about the leaders? The leaders want the second Civil War, no matter who they are, whether they're white nationalists, so-called black supremacists, whether they Latin supremacists, any race, creed, or kind that wants to be, that are super identifying themselves in it is one basket. I'm not saying that's wrong, but all right, I'm neutral. I'm a political atheist. So we're looking at what the leaders of these factions, who are those secretly most of the time, they need the explosion. They need the second Civil War. But how do you get them to get on board with stopping the second Civil War? Even if you get 1 or 2 of them, it has to be the 2 heads of both the super factions. So you have to compromise with them. Correct? You can't take them out because then you made them a martyr. You have to compromise. This is shadow government, shadow negotiations. And you do your public diplomacy, you're influencing through the media and through administrative eases, like eases on taxes, eases on cost of products and whatnot, eases on travel bans. And you allow the people to be able to flow and have better. Therefore, they're not ready to go to war with the government. They're not feeling as bad about the government, and they're not ready to go war with each other. So you don't have that second Civil War, but it's the leaders that can manipulate their people. You got to get them on board. Because that's what could have stopped the 1994 slaughters in Rwanda and Burundi. And the disintegration of Somali and Eritrea and Ethiopia. Look at that.
Calling out to you aspiring real peoples, entrepreneurs up, being stuck in a rut down. Thanks for watching.
So January 6, 2021 is something that you can also already look at, because that was a U.S. Capitol attacks by members of a super faction. It was a message sent out from them that we have this in us. We're capable of doing this. And we're going to sacrifice ourselves. We know we're going to go to prison. We already know we lost the election, whether it was rightfully or wrongfully. So this is what we're about to show the world, that this threat is real, correct? So really, it doesn't give us an example outside of what I already gave you. January 6, 2021 doesn't give us an example of how to avoid it, but it shows us what it will look like on such a micro scale. You know, the city halls of the United States of America being overran by factions, not random only, Not just the Joker, like in the movie, the Joker movie, where he instigated and helped instigate the people to go mad and do all this random looting. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a secret faction with multiple secret factions within all that looting. Power groups with guns, bombs, with actual ruthless killers, and organized. Then you will have faction groups that are good people, just smart enough to have prepared. And that's what I'm about. That just want to help people survive and organize and stuff. That alone will be two factions fighting each other. Because you got the group going out, forcing people to join or die. The gang thing, just like in prison or in the bad communities in the streets. Or even the organized crime. Look at the Russian mafia in the United States. Look at the Jewish mafia in the United States. The Irish. You know what I'm saying? Look at these people. Look at the Vietnamese gangs and the Vietnamese mafia. Look at the Tongs of the Chinese Americans. That's historical. These groups are going to want to force control. Whereas you got people that could be just like created their own group. Like what I'm interested in doing. I'm moving toward it. This is what this is about. And we just want to help people learn medical skills, how to grow their own food, how to clean water, how to keep things going, how to treat people if they're sick or have injuries, how to keep people alive if the electricity is out, and keep a sense of hope. Keep organized and keep a good head and stay healthy regardless of the weather changes if the electricity stays out like for a year. Be able to defend certain areas that you live in from intruders, and this is one those two type will be factions fighting each other alone. But how about these big militias in the Midwest, in the South, even some here in the West Coast, in California, New York, Maine, you know what I'm saying, Oregon. There's literal organized militias with plans. You see, and it doesn't have to be said that it's a second civil war. It's just if certain things, factors are there, they're going to give an order. And these groups are going to start taking control. And they will be about total control. They're going to clash. They're going to fight over areas. Who are you going to be? And then this is the question. And so, looking at January 6th, you had people that wanted to keep order and just keep peace and save lives there. And then you see other people came there to take control and to let them know we taking over. And that's what we get out of January 6th. We don't get a solution out of January 6th. We see a potential to get worse in January 6th if we don't find the solutions and implement them. Have we, it's 2024, June, have we implemented those solutions? That's the question.
Calling out to you aspiring real peoples. Prime Up International, the platform portal, elevating candidates for legacy success. Entrepreneurs up, being stuck in a rut down. For all professions and aspirations, we upscale you to your prime potentials. We give important literature to our teens and young adults as gifts. Click the link for my book, Outline to Empowered, How to Do and What to Know for Evolutionary Living. Love every time.
We can look at President Assad in Syria. He wouldn't compromise. That was a tyranny. So if the United States is not a real democracy, it's an anarchy, and that's what it actually is. It came out of being a democracy, and it never was really a democracy at all, looking at how oppressive it was toward masses of groups. If the United States had did better by, if there was no Jim Crow era in the United States, and blacks actually had got their reparations, it would be different. But the United States has never been a democracy at all. It's always been a hypocrisy and anarchy. And so when I mentioned President Assad, there was no compromise. So President Assad gets the blame for actually what is a group, an elite group that is a regime controlling that nation state. So The hypocrisy of the United States and Europe, they're always trying to tell you to blame a president or a prime minister. That's hypocrisy. There's an entire group. There was no Adolf Hitler alone. It was an entire regime of people that wanted to destroy others, take all their pain out on others. You get it? And so there's no compromise. And the reason why we have all this polarization is because there's no compromise. You need compromising of these super factions and of these factions. And I'm talking about the super factions running the government. Not just there's super factions, as I just explained, outside of the government. And then there's factions outside of the government. There's organized crime factions. There's organized corporation factions. You ever thought about that? SpaceX, Tesla. That's how anybody that's connected to him is going to be an entire faction. Zimmerman, Meta, Facebook, Instagram, etc. That's an entire, they have so much funding. They both openly built their bunkers. Those are going to be entire factions, power groups, if the second Civil War kicks off or gets worse and doesn't get fixed, because we're already in the second Civil War. So the compromising will come in. That's why I brought up Assad, a historical fact about his side. And then there's a threat of mass violence, right? And that's a tool of these control groups. And these factions forcing injustice, oppression, forcing people to join, are always created out of injustice. Whether these factions start off bad and end up bad, stay bad, or whether they start off good and then go bad. Injustice caused this. These is the root of all of this. You have to understand, when people have so much and they let other people hungry, there's no good in that. It's the root cause of current and future problems. That's why they always say, fix the economy, you'll fix the crime. Give people jobs. Give people opportunities, businesses, etc. Don't pick the dark-skinned people to be the people that have to be poor. Don't do stupid shit like that. Let everybody be on an equal playing field. That's not the United States of America. And they thought, oh, we were just going to keep the bees down. So the black people were the bees. We're just going to keep them down. Yeah, we could get everything going good. We could take all our problems down and have them suffering. And that was everybody. Everybody that come to the United States is against, even black people, against African Americans. African Americans have been too poor and too disempowered to be against Africans that come to the United States from Africa, or Caribbeans, or any other immigrants. So you know it has been a concerted effort to destroy people that were already programmed over hundreds of years to destroy themselves. So everyone's taking advantage of these people, but you want the United States to last forever or to get perfect. You're out of your, if you even ever had a mind, all of you are out of your mind. You have to fix the problems. Your karma will not be good if you are not good. Good don't come out of bad. So I'm giving you these solutions and possibilities because that's the talk, methods and ways the United States can avoid the second Civil War. I'm not saying that these methods and ways will be ever achieved. In fact, I know they won't. So injustice being a root cause of all these conflicts puts a lot of doubt on whether any of these solutions will be fulfilled. Why? Because the system was built on injustice. Some people in it benefited from that. They have no empathy still to this day toward justice, only toward power. Why? Because they're super faction members. Those are the super faction groups. So these lead super factions are what's going to cause the second Civil War. Whether it's the left or the right, Republican, Democrat, this is the root cause of the second Civil War. That's it. You can't get out of it.
We give important literature to our teens and young adults as gifts. Click the link for my book, Outline, Too Empowered, How to Do and What to Know for Evolutionary Living. Love every time.
It's anarchy. The rule of law will be taken away. Is breaking away already. Calls the end police. Why wouldn't they? You're going out killing the black people to make everybody in the society be scared of the no matter what race, even whites. They're putting fear in you all by killing innocent black people. It has solved nothing to make black people stop being black, because no matter what, they're going to be black and stop having fun, because no matter what, they need to have fun. They need to enjoy life. So these racists going out killing black people, these law enforcement racists, and some of them are Luciferian cults. Not just racists, they're Lucifer, and they say cults, and they say we need people to suffer, and we want to spread fear and hurt and pain and spread division. So they go out, they have some of their members that are police officers go out and kill black people. This is a problem. We need to, that's taken over. You take that out of society, it's less divided. It's less polarization, correct? So that's a threat to the rule of law, is that all these people who have no drop, whether they white, black, or anything, they're not racist no more. That's an older people thing. It is. There's young people that are still being forced, and all they know is that they're selfish and scared, but they could be taken out of that and given a chance. But the old coons can't, being racial and all that stupid shit and being classism. That's another problem. That's worse, because now no matter what race, creed, and color, because black people treat each other like shit when it comes to classism. Now, I'm a black American, an ADOS, a Foundation of Black American. I am. And I'm mixed. Both. I'm not directly mixed, but I'm mixed enough clearly. And so I get to talk on both. And I'm telling you, black people with things could care less about black people that don't have. The only time you see black people with things doing anything for or aware and having any contact with black people that don't have is to make themselves feel and look good. If it's a tax write-off. And that's not only in the United States. I would say that's worse in Africa, in the Caribbean. And I lived in the Caribbean and lived in Africa. I didn't just visit. And so this needs to be fixed. Classism is amongst white people bad. White Americans. You got things that needs to be fixed, but will they be? That's the voice of accountability is what I'm talking about. The extent to what's the voice of accountability? What's it defined? The extent the citizens can participate in government on all levels. So if you don't have rule of law proper, and you don't have the voice of accountability that's allowing political awareness and allowing citizen class to participate in government. The United States totally discourages citizens from participating in government unless they've been hired into the administrative state or elected, which means they're already participating in government. Otherwise, everybody else is just supposed to be a consumer. That's all the TV shows, that's all the media, that's all, even social media is big on that. So without voice of accountability by the civilian class, the masses, what are you expecting? To stop the Second Civil War? You know how long, if it's 2024 June, it would take to get people to care about stop gossiping and stop fornicating? Now, I'm getting deep. I'm not going to get so spiritual and deep, but that's really a cause to this problem. So, Government effectiveness. It's another area, which is the quality of public services and quality of independence of civil services. Again, government effectiveness need to be fixed. The quality of public services and the quality of independence of civil service. What is that to a teenager in inner city or rural under all this division going on? All this hoopla. It's election year 2024. All this division. Donald Trump just got felonies. Joe Biden's son just got felonies. Convictions. Now they're trying to take Joe Biden out of presidency. Everything's divided. So the quality of public services, public health, and everything is down. It is. And the voice of accountability is down. And the rule of law is down. You will get somebody that had a domestic dispute and was nonviolent. They just talk shit. They'll get more time in prison in the state of California than someone that shot someone dead. It's twisted. And then you look at the sick things going on in prison. Men constant, all they do in prison is sit up and hunt each other, predatory, or trying to rape each other. All be violent to each other. There's no self-love in prisons. It's not allowed. You have to have gone through hell. You have to sell your soul and bend over and have sex. What if he's heterosexual? Why are y'all raping him? What you supposed to be men? You don't get to redefine what men are. Why are you raping them? They want to be gay is different. Y'all rape men for nothing in prison, and you allow other men to. Oh, I mind my business. No, y'all can talk to each other. I've seen it. I've seen it where they talk to each other and say, "We ain't no sex going on in here." That need to be for now for the rest of ever prison, unless it's a child molester. So those are the rule of law, the voice of accountability, and government effectiveness must be fixed today to avoid this second civil war in the United States that we're already in, to stop from becoming protracted military conflict. I don't think it's going to happen.
Calling out to you aspiring real peoples. Prime Up International, the platform portal, elevating candidates for legacy success. Entrepreneurs up, being stuck in a rut down. For all professions and aspirations, we upscale you to your prime potentials.
So nobody wants government to be overreaching, correct? We want free market. This isn't about a free market any longer. This is about avoiding total destruction. But do they really want to avoid total destruction? You got let me tell you, you got average everyday people sitting up thinking because that they're an entrepreneur and they did good when Robinhood was unregulated, so they think they're an investor, and they did good when crypto first started and was doing all those scams with tokens, and so now they think they're an entrepreneur. But almost all of them I know that was doing it are now working jobs. That's all they're doing, because that's all they were running some scam shit. So you say you don't want government to be overreaching and whatnot, but government being overreaching and social services is what saved the United States during the Depression and after the First World War and after the Second World War. So why not use government temporarily to stop the Second Civil War from being protracted, and then to regress the process of us being close to a protracted conflict, Second Civil War reality? Because if any of these kooks, crazies want to start doing terrorist attacks, that's the moment that start. Here comes somebody else that was sitting out there wanting to do it and doing it. You got to think about it. So this overreaching government, which is, now let's look at the other side of overreaching government, which is already here, which is pushing us into the second civil war, the destructive end of second civil war. We don't have privacy rights no more. When you get a mouse or an elephant and you push them into a corner, they're gonna come out fighting. You see, you're overtaxing the average people. You're overtaxing small businesses, but you're bailing out the big corporations nationwide. That's not a state-to-state issue. No privacy rights. Don't blame Edward Snowden. Barack Obama, don't blame Edward Snowden. Don't blame any of these people. Y'all on a witch hunt toward these, and I say y'all, including Donald Trump. He's not as bad as the Democratic presidents, but y'all on a witch hunt on these whistleblowers. But the whistleblowers are benefiting us all, taking the burdens off of people and helping people what? Not explode. And that's just what continued protracted conflict will be as the second civil war. You also you're not regulating the mega corporations. The billion-dollar corporations aren't being regulated properly. Their greed being and I'm talking about these apartment building corporations throughout the United States of America. They own all these apartments. They're overcharging. And no matter what state they're forcing people into complete poverty. People could play around with phones and stuff to make themselves think they're and have these fake graduations, these half-ass and one-fourth-ass education. Violence. The juvenile halls and prisons is full of people. These corporations are bogus as hell. They're not benefiting society. They're nothing to true capitalism. They're just total robbing barons. They use the 14th Amendment to call themselves individuals, right? Well, they're fucking robbing barons. The corporations are robbing barons. And who's fueling them? The government. They're controlling the government in the United States. It's a plutocracy and an anarchy completely. And this is all because of the corruption of what? Judicial, legislative, executive, media, and administrative states. And who is backing that? CIA, FBI, NSA. That's why we're going to the second civil war. It's not the masses of people that are being liberal or even right-wingers that with their beliefs. It's the government. And now we're getting these crazy people are being empowered now. You got these jokers all over it. And when I say joker, I mean like from Batman. We got these insane people running these cartels, these hacker groups. They're running these groups in prison, raping the men and turning them insane. You got all these different extreme examples of these, and they all got these leaders. They're jokers in their minds. They're crazy, insane. They're like Lex Luthor. You got the crazy, insane Lex Luthors that are empowered because of all this nonsense. And they're the corporate, the Lex Luthor. They're using the corporate to drive people crazy and insane. Yeah, this all needs to come to an end. It needs to at least be delineated, disempowered, to pull back from this second civil war we're in. We need to pull back from it. We need to disempower all these different heads of all these different faction groups and all this corruption. And denial is the key problem to this. We have to get out of denial as a mass. We got to come out of denial. But you can't tell middle class people anything in the United States of America. This is the most idiotic group of people in the planet Earth is the middle class of the United States of America. You're too busy wanting to be what you're not. You're never going to be wealthier than what you are. You don't fit in with them. They don't want you. You go around and you feel lesser than because you're worshiping them. We meet these people from the rural areas and the city areas, especially the rural areas, that's middle class. When they go to these beach areas and see these wealthy people, they just feel so insecure. They're so weak. But guess what these same people do? They look down on poor people. Now, it's getting better, but it's too late. You didn't push. The middle class has helped the middle class conservative, confusing mind frame programmed by the TV, by the media, by the schools, with this foolishness to want to worship people that are politicians and worship the government and worship religious people and worship wealthy people, but then look down on people who you think. So that fuels what? That form of classism fuels racism. This is a deep problem in the United States of why I say we are already in the second civil war and it's not ever going to go back. But fixing that problem will stop the second civil war from happening. Fixing that classism problem. You have to fix the masses. Who are what? The middle class and poor. Then you got the militia groups, these factions that are legal and illegal. The cartels, the mafias. Then you got the legal factions that are militia groups. They're Christian militia groups. They're white supremacist militia groups, but they do it legally. They have their legal guns and their illegal guns, but they're legally on paper. You have to compromise with them. You gotta make them feel better about things. This is not being done. These people are pushed to the extent where they're gonna snap, and their leaders, like I said, are these jokers, like the movie Joker from Batman. And you got these they have their own military forces basically, and they want to take control. Their factions. These are problems. They use incremental measures. These more powerful groups to shaping secret societies. They created from secret society control military group, dependent groups. These different. You have to fix that. How's it going to be done? Has to be completely focused on this. But the United States is giving money to fight these wars because they have what? The outside international enemies, outside international obligations to so-called allies. The United States does. That's why internally none of this stuff is getting fixed, and it's not going to get fixed because the threat is so detrimental with BRICS being foreign and being so empowered. Now the United States doesn't have the ability and the time or the resources to fund the fixing of its second civil war reality. The insurgencies, which are of these super factions and factions, are about to become again military conflict. And I'm not just talking about groups fighting, I'm talking about it's going to start off with terrorist attacks, explosions, whatever, mercenary events, killing politicians and corporate people. All this stuff is low-key, is what will signal that the second civil war has become protracted military conflict. There's no turning back from there. You're already fully there. We haven't got there yet, right? So we need not to. These insurgencies from domestic factions must implement counterinsurgency tactics now, preventative insurgency tactics. Not just NSA, FBI, and CIA, and military, and local, state police, and federal police. You have to take all that money you're giving over to this war you fighting over in Ukraine and in Israel. All them funds need to be put towards stopping and strengthening. But I don't think the leaders in the United States really want that. I think they just want to be the ones to come out in power and alive in some bunker somewhere after the second civil war and World War III ends. I think that's what's going on. So what's the biggest threat? The biggest threat to cause the second civil war and that we need to end is what I was just saying. International influence is the biggest threat. It's a big distraction. It's completely the distraction. The enemy, cyber attacks. If the second civil war starts, is what I'm trying to say, and becomes protracted conflict, soon as it's seen friends and frenemies of the United States government and friends and frenemies of the United States populace are going to attack the United States. You think the French really give a damn about the United government? The French government hates the United States because they took their gold. The French government wouldn't even go all the way in with the NATO or EU. They keep their own independence to a degree and stuff because of that. They're going to do cyber attacks. The frenemies and enemies of the United States, once the insurgency attacks becomes protracted continual conflict. So we must fix overnight to stop this second civil war. We must fix the international relations issue. Again, we're talking about stopping the second civil war in the United States of America. If we don't fix this huge worst threat with these international enemies and frenemies, the BRICS countries and the frenemies as France and others that really don't get down with the United States like that. And if you ask me, Israel, the state of Israel is a frenemy of the United States of America. It's over. Once the protracted military conflict starts in the United States of America against one another, the factions, and not just criminal but organized factions, it's over because the BRICS countries are going to attack Russia, China. Why wouldn't they? They're going to take advantage of that. Thus, we're not only going to be in a second civil war, we're going to be in World War III. I'm telling you, me alone, it's telling you, the mafia groups, the cartels are going to attack. They're already attacking. They're attacking law and order, correct? Well, they're going to take advantage of it. Organized. I'm not talking about random and all that hoopla. I'm talking about organized criminal cartels and mafia groups are going to go around and take control of specific areas and fight over areas along with the legal militias. So imagine how BRICS countries are going to attack the United States once they see continual protracted military conflict going on in the United States between different groups. In fact, those groups and militias, including the cartels and mafias, the criminal groups, organized groups, are going to be fighting with local, state, and federal government, fighting with military, fighting with CIA and FBI, fighting with citizen groups. So we have to stop the international problem. But will we? Look at all these tentacles that need to be pulling time backwards and fixing what has already been cemented. That's what needs to be done to stop the second civil war. We're in the second civil war. It's just the cold area. It's June 2024. I'm doing this. I am O.W.U Asaruma'a the Pat Bay. This is O, the original world union, the original world amity. Contact me, communicate, leave comments, subscribe, let's connect, hit that bell, give your donations, whatnot. The books are coming and everything. We need to prepare, but right now we're talking about what we need to do. So you are welcome to come on. If you're remote, we do live streaming remote. We can get you on to communicate and we can do a full talk. Let's do this because really it's time for us to prepare for the next stage of the second civil war. At least I'm trying. So I'm giving options and potentials of how to stop this continual protracted conflict of the second civil war. I'm giving options to be better. I did what I could. It's up to you. Let's communicate about it. Let's go in. Benevolence, it's love every time. O.W.U. We will meet. We are the ones. We already ascended from the future, so we know the solutions. I do, and so do you. You ascendants from the future. O.W.U. Love every time. Benevolence.